The Hotel Holiday Inn, the War Hotel, was our house.
People were shot dead on the entrance to the hotel.
I do remember a time when hotel was shelled and it started burning.
Prizemlje hotela je kompletno bilo devastirano.
I turned to the cameraman. I said, look, let's get the hell out of here.
How had this place continued to function during 3.5 years of siege?
Holiday Inn was the bastion to tell the people of the world what was happening in Sarajevo.
Sarajevo, city of love, art and music. But on the banks of the Miljacka River, the lifeline of Bosnia-Herzegovina, history has also been carved in the heart of the Balkans. This place has given birth to civilizations and peoples and witnessed wars that have shaped Europe. But this historic city, where races, religions and ethnicities have molded together, was torn apart in 1992 by a bloody war. It lasted for 3.5 years and took the lives of thousands of Bosnian Muslims, Serbs and Croats. This distinctive yellow building on the front line saw the siege and bloodshed close up, but also became a fortress for the world's media. This is the story of Sarajevo's infamous war hotel, the Holiday Inn. In 1982, Sarajevo was preparing to host the 14th Winter Olympic Games 2 years later. The Holiday Inn, designated for VIPs and senior Olympic Committee figures, was under construction. Before the hotel was built, the land was called Circusplatz because visiting circuses used to set up there. Kenneth Morrison is a professor of modern history at Leicester's de Montfort University in the UK. He's written 4 books on the Balkans, including one about Sarajevo's landmark Holiday Inn.
The design of the building was quite controversial. It was designed by the Sarajevo architect Ivan Strauss, whose buildings you can find all over the city. The scale model, the original scale model of the hotel was built in yellow. It was constructed of yellow plastic. But when the builders who were working on the building actually started to construct the facade and they saw that the facade was actually yellow, Ivan Strauss said that it came as quite a shock. They didn't expect the building itself actually to be yellow.
Bosnian architect Ivan Strauss came up with a new hotel concept, what he called a city in a hotel which you have no need to leave. Floors and corridors were to open into a spacious lobby, giving the illusion of greater size. The Holiday Inn's grand opening was on the 6th of October 1983, with the president of the International Olympic Committee, Juan Antonio Samaranch, in attendance. One of the few people who's worked at the hotel since the start is Jairo Rovchanin. He's now the hotel's executive director.
Dan pred olimpijske igre bili smo centar svijeta. Sva događanja su bili ovdje. Bila ovdje u hotelu, vrvilo je sve. Bili smo u momentu skeptici, nije bilo snijega. Te noći iste, znači sa 7. na 8. februar 86. snijeg je pao.
Boba Lizdek worked as a translator for foreign media and is very familiar with the Holiday Inn. She and Kenneth Morrison visited the hotel while he was working on his new book about the reporting of the Siege of Sarajevo.
For me, the Hotel Holiday Inn was always very important. First, for the Olympic Games, I was a really young girl who worked for the guests. I was translator and hostess. And in fact, for the first time when I get to the Hotel Holiday Inn was during the Olympic Games.
The euphoria of the Sarajevo Winter Olympics was short-lived.
Tito as its hero and its emancipator.
Josip Broz Tito had led the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia since 1944. His death in 1980 left a political vacuum, a worsening economic crisis, and led to a wave of nationalism. In the early 1990s, Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro and Macedonia pulled themselves violently apart. After the 1990 elections in Bosnia-Herzegovina, three main nationalist parties shared power. The Muslim SDA, led by Alija Izetbegović, the Serb SDS under Radovan Karadzic, and a branch of Franjo Tudjman's Croatian HDZ. The SDA and HDZ wanted independence, while the Serb SDS wanted to remain in the rump of Yugoslavia, along with Serbia and Montenegro. So the relationships between these three parties soon deteriorated dramatically. On the 29th of February 1992, a Bosnian independence referendum was held. The Muslims, known as Bosniaks, and the Croatians took a full part. But the Bosnian Serbs largely boycotted the vote and rejected the yes result on the 1st of March. The same day, a Serb wedding party was sporting the Serbian flag in downtown Sarajevo when it was fired on by a Bosnian Muslim gangster, killing the groom's father. The Serb family made for the Holiday Inn, where a number of rooms had become the temporary HQ of the Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic. The bloody wedding episode may have offered the Bosnian Serbs the opportunity they'd been waiting for. That same night, they began implementing what was effectively a dress rehearsal for the Siege of Sarajevo. Barricades appeared and armed masked men stalked the streets. From his hub at the Holiday Inn, Radovan Karadzic oversaw the action.
This room, room 530, this suite was also used by Radovan Karadzic, the leader of the Serbian Democratic Party, or SDS. He lived here with his family in this suite, Karadzic, his wife and his two children, and they stayed here until the shootings on the 6th of April 1992, where after Karadzic escaped from the hotel with his family.
By Monday, the 6th of April, a large but peaceful protest for Bosnian unity had made its way from the parliament towards the Holiday Inn and Karadzic's base there. But snipers on the upper floors opened fire. Bosnian journalist Samir Koric was nearby when the shooting started.
I remember when the shots came from the Holiday Inn, actually we heard cracks, we heard some noise, and then we saw people, falling down, started to running everywhere, hiding behind trees, behind some small buildings and everything.
Snajperisti koji su bili u hotelu, pozicionirani u pravcu parlamenta, su pucali po nedužnim građanima okupljenim ispred parlamenta protestujući protiv rata. I to je bio u stvari uvod u rat.
6 civilians were killed on that first day of the siege. Karadzic, his guards and family escaped from the hotel, but Bosnian police arrested Serb snipers in the lobby of the Holiday Inn, which then remained closed for several months. From here, the 3.5-year war erupted and spread across all of Bosnia-Herzegovina. In April and May 1992, dozens of journalists had arrived in Sarajevo. Among them, the experienced Martin Bell from the
To be
BBC.
here tomorrow, negotiating from this very hotel. I don't see that happening.
He and his crew first stayed here at the Hotel Bosna in Ilidža, near the airport. Martin Bell lives in North London. He left the BBC in 1997 to become a Member of Parliament and is now a UNICEF ambassador. But to those who knew him in Bosnia, he'll always be the man in the white suit.
We arrived in a great rush because the war had already broken out, and frankly, we were a day late. We drove in from Belgrade, and the obvious stopping place was the Hotel Bosna in Ilidža.
The first major battle of the war took place on the 22nd of April 1992, in and around the Hotel Bosna, between the Bosnian Serbs and Yugoslav army on one side, and the emerging Bosnian Muslim armed groups on the other. It lasted for 10 days. One cameraman was wounded, and other TV crews' rooms were hit by snipers and shelling. Martin Bell and his crew were trapped inside the hotel with other journalists, guests and staff. These rare pictures, shot by the BBC's Eric Powell, show Bell and the crew doing a live link with London, with mayhem going on around them.
You can probably hear it in the background. It hasn't stopped.
So we were on the balcony of the Hotel Bosna, and while we were there, a huge battle erupted all around us.
As they have done in the past, excuse me. But it is difficult to see that working at the moment because there is not, as you can hear around me, the will for a ceasefire.
You know, sometimes things happen, and I felt the air above my head, something was happening to it. A bullet had whistled by and sucked the air out of it, and it hit the wall behind me.
If you'll excuse me, I just want to break off because we've had some incoming sniper fire and I don't want to endanger the crew out here.
And at that point, I turned to the cameraman. I said, look, let's get the hell out of here for our own safety. And we just closed down and went inside. And that was the last time we did a live two-way in a public space in Bosnia for the whole of the war.
On the 15th of May 1992, Martin Bell and all the other journalists left the Hotel Bosna and set up their new base at the Holiday Inn. By the summer of 1992, the Serbs were tightening the noose around Sarajevo. And the shelling and snipers were relentless and indiscriminate. The Holiday Inn had become the permanent home for hundreds of correspondents, photographers, and crews. Among them was Paul Lowe, and a Bosnian journalist, Amra Abajic, who would become his wife after the war. Hajro Rovčanin welcomed his old friends back to the Holiday Inn.
I think maybe the Holiday Inn became the war hotel in Sarajevo because of a kind of accident, but also by design. Because of its unique location in the center of the city, almost like this kind of fortress that you could look out from all sides onto the rest of the terrain. Somehow or other, we're never quite sure why, the hotel managed to keep the supplies of food coming in, and it managed to keep itself relatively safe. It was shelled and shot at on occasion, but in general it was seen as this kind of safe haven in the center of the city.
Well, hotel was a very strange place. I remember when I came here for the first time, it was just amazing. There were all these journalists, there were, you know, lots of them were experienced. It was like a little town in itself.
By the time I came back, which was about the second week in June, the Holiday Inn was more or less put together, but I stayed in a flat which actually had a better view than the Holiday Inn of the nightly pyrotechnics of the fighting that happened. But I felt I needed to be closer to the gossip of the press corps. So I also took a room in the newly reopened Holiday Inn, probably about the 22nd of June. And that's how I first came to live there, and I loved it.
The people of Sarajevo consider the 22nd of July 1992 the fiercest and bloodiest day of the siege. More than 3,500 shells were fired across the city that day. Most pictures and video of the bombardment of the city were filmed from the Holiday Inn. The hotel was hit directly several times by heavy fire from Serb posts in Grbavica and Mount Trebević.
The side of the hotel that you can see behind me was very badly damaged by shell and sniper fire. It was completely uninhabitable, so journalists didn't use that side of the hotel.
Prizemlje hotela je kompletno bilo devastirano. Znači, stakla na sve strane. Galeriji, zidovi, sve je bilo uništeno.
These rare pictures, filmed in May 1993, show the scale of the destruction inside the hotel, where the main entrance and reception were the most dangerous areas. Here was the first-floor restaurant, directly facing the front line. And here, an exposed side entrance, a virtual no-go area. The basement garage itself was sheltered, and so was packed with press cars and armored vehicles. But getting in and out every day was extremely dangerous.
So there was a sense of this being a concrete cocoon, which was completely false because people were shot dead on the entrance to the hotel. But, you know, there were kind of certain unwritten rules, so you didn't come in through the front entrance, and that was what happened to the people who were shot. They came in through the wrong entrance, basically.
I thought to myself, I've got a better chance of surviving if I don't enter the hotel through the main door, which was in the line of fire from the Serbs opposite. And I had a further superstition that I was always walk to my room in the clockwise direction, however long it took, rather than the anti-clockwise direction. And it sort of helped to keep me alive.
On the night of the 13th of November 1994, the hotel was hit by a barrage of shells and sniper rounds, causing a huge fire and turmoil among the journalists.
I do remember a time when hotel was shelled and started burning. At the time I was in Reuters' office, and very thick smoke basically overtook the whole floor. We were on the 5th floor, and we managed somehow to crawl out.
For me, myself, I spent a lot of time outside anyway, you know, so I felt safer when I came to a hotel than on the streets of Sarajevo. But no, we didn't feel safe. There was no way we could have felt safe.
The main street between the Holiday Inn and the Parliament building became known as Sniper Alley.
Behind me is Zmaja od Bosne, or the Dragon of Bosnia. That's the name of this street. But 25 years ago, this was known as Sniper Alley. This was one of the most dangerous intersections in Sarajevo. The hotel sat immediately on Sniper Alley. And of course, the journalists were living in proximity of much of the sniper fire, which is one of the reasons why so much footage emanated from journalists around this particular area. They were located in the hotel, and snipers were particularly active in this area.
According to 1995 UN figures, 225 people were killed here, 60 of them children, and over 1,000 injured. During the siege, the foreign correspondents and photographers became a part of people's daily lives in Sarajevo. On the ground, the conflict was relentless, but the world became increasingly desensitized to people's pain and suffering. Some, like Martin Bell, Paul Marchand, and Boba Lizdek, stopped wearing flak jackets and helmets while reporting amongst civilians.
Neither Paul nor myself wear flak jacket during the war on our regular work missions during the day, because for him, as for me, was really indecent to wear a flak jacket in front of the unprotected people who were in the street and who were completely exposed to snipers and shellings every single day.
Jedne prilike ekipa CNN-a je namjenski došla kod mene kući. Imao sam malo dijete, curicu godinu dana. Ne. Donijeli su mi, sjećam se, 2 školjke jaja, glavicu kupusa, 5-6 kila krompira. Ali meni je to bilo kao da su mi poklonili milijarde.
Stills photographer Paul Lowe also captured moments of great power and poignancy. His prime location was at the notorious Sniper intersection by Ali Pasha Mosque on Marshal Tito Street. Here, he took one of the iconic pictures of the Siege of Sarajevo.
Where we're standing now was probably the most dangerous place in the entire city to stand. So when people wanted to come during the war to get into the main part of the city, they had to cross this intersection. And the only way you could do that was to sprint for your life, otherwise you would have been killed. So I shot from exactly this position because I was protected from the snipers in the hills. If I'd moved forward just a couple of centimeters, then I could have been shot. But from here, I was protected by the tomb and by this wall, and I could stay here relatively safely and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot.
Stories abound involving journalists and the people of Sarajevo. Kurt Schork was an American journalist whom everyone at the Holiday Inn knew well. One of the most dramatic scenes of the siege took place at Lyon Cemetery on the 4th of August 1992. Schork was there with a team from Reuters, covering the funeral of 2 children killed by snipers. Despite the shelling, he tended to a badly wounded woman, then got her into his agency car and took her to hospital. Kurt Schork reported on another tragic story. It took place close to the Holiday Inn at the notorious Verbania Bridge and became known as the Sarajevo Romeo and Juliet. Schork heard about 2 bodies lying at the bridge, and he and Samir Kuric went to get a closer look.
We went to the scene. We had to hide because it was on the front line, very, very front line. And we saw 2 young people laying next to each other, hugged, and obviously dead. That was the famous, very well-known story of Sarajevo Romeo and Juliet, Boško and Admira, the couple who one day decided they want to leave Sarajevo, besieged Sarajevo. He was a Serb, she was a Muslim. They loved each other very much, and they decided to leave. Somebody probably told them they're safe to leave, you know, they were killed.
Kurt Schork became very emotionally attached to the families of Boško Brkić and Admira Ismić. He diced with death again 5 years later, when he and 3 Reuters and AP colleagues were ambushed by militiamen in Sierra Leone in May 2000. Schork and his cameraman-producer were killed instantly. At his request, half of Schork's ashes were buried in Sarajevo, the city of his beloved Romeo and Juliet. The main road to the airport is now named after him. The siege of Sarajevo lasted 1,425 days. 11,541 citizens were killed and many more injured. The siege was lifted on the 29th of February 1996, following the signing of the Dayton Peace Agreement that ended the Bosnian conflict. The Holiday Inn is still standing, under new management and with a new name, and remains a landmark in a rejuvenated city, a symbol of the endurance and fortitude of the people of Sarajevo, remembering their iconic war hotel.
the Holiday Inn Sarajevo. It was the ultimate war zone hotel, its south side blown away by shot and shell, apparently the lodging place from hell, and yet, away from where the mortars fell, it did not just survive, but cast its spell. It was our refuge, and it served us well. To those who ran away, it seemed accursed, more like ground zero than a place of rest. By normal standards, it was quite the worst, but to us war zone folk, it seemed the best. We the believers, they the infidels, in this most dangerous of all hotels, and those who stayed there were uniquely blessed.